I will be speaking to an army wife whose family was moved off the base. Good enough for our brave men and women who serve our country. But those migrants, well, of course, they don't quite fancy it. Now, I am sure some of you have children and grandchildren anxiously awaiting their A-level results tomorrow. Good luck, everybody, good luck. But some universities have been telling foreign students to, quote, get ahead of the game before young Brits get their results tomorrow and scramble for places during the clearing zone. This is an outright scandal. The British taxpayer should take notice of this and try to stop it. But it's one thing closing a bank account down for non-aligning values. But now we're cancelling comedy for it as well. A sold-out gig organised by GBNews' very own Andrew Doyle and Father Ted writer Graham Linehan was set to perform tomorrow night before it was cancelled for, quote, being too controversial, believe it or not. That controversial view, by the way, is that women are women and a man with full genitalia should not be going anywhere near a female changing room. Yes, remarkable. But get this, the Lionesses, an absolute triumph. They beat the hosts Australia 3-1 today. They're into a World Cup final. They are going to take on the Spanish. I really do think that they will win as well. You add that to the Euros, but the question I'm asking is whether or not we will see their manager managing in the Premier League very, very soon. Could we have a female manager? Look, she would, of course, I think, maybe do a better job than Gareth Southgate would. But State of the Nation starts now. Yes, my panel this evening is a proper rogues gallery. We've got former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the former Labour MP, Simon Danchuk. Neither will thank me for saying that, but we all know it's true. Now, remember, we want to hear from you. That email remains the same always. We love to hear from you. mailmog@gbnews.com. But right now, it's time for the news of the day with Polly Middlehurst.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening. Well, the top story from the GB newsroom is that we can reveal the number of migrants crossing the English Channel on small boats this year has passed 17,000. Almost 500 people were on board several small boats crossing the English Channel today from France. Journeys which started at around 3:30 this morning. 4 Border Force vessels were helping to rescue the migrants, and they were assisted by Dover, Ramsgate and Dungeness lifeboats. UK Border Force spent the day on red alert during what they've called an extremely busy time for migrant activity. And with weather conditions expected to improve over the weekend, a significant surge in crossings is expected. A man's been arrested on suspicion of collecting information likely to be useful to terrorists following the Pearsonite data breach. The 39-year-old man has been detained following a search in County Armagh. He's now being questioned by police in Belfast. Last week, the details of 10,000 police officers and staff were published online by mistake, followed by a second breach relating to stolen documents and a laptop. And a member of staff has been sacked, and the Metropolitan Police are investigating after a number of items from the British Museum in London were found to be missing, stolen or damaged. In a statement this afternoon, the museum said the items included gold, jewellery, semi-precious stones and glass dating from the 15th century BC to the 19th century AD. The museum described them as small pieces not recently on public display and which were mainly used for research and academic work. It's launched its own independent review of security following the incident. Economists are saying the UK may still fall into recession despite today's drop in inflation. The Prime Minister, however, says the inflation figures out today, which don't include housing costs like mortgage payments, prove the government's plan is working. But the leading think tank warned that rising interest rates could cause the economy to contract. Latest figures from the Office for National Statistics found consumer price index inflation dropped to 6.8% in the year to July. Now, an Edinburgh Fringe show featuring an award-winning comedy writer that was cancelled has now found a new venue. Ticket holders will be informed of the location for tomorrow's show shortly before it starts. Speaking to GB News earlier on today, Father Ted writer Graham Linehan said he thought the days of comedians being silenced for their views were over.
They could have given me a chance to exit the gig and allow the other acts to perform. They could have done it without defaming me on their Instagram post as a bigot, which is the first thing these people always do. So, you know, unfortunately, we are beginning legal proceedings.
Weather news, and a thunderstorm is set to hit parts of the UK. A yellow wind warning has been issued for western parts of Wales. Storms are expected to hit late on Friday evening and sweeping in across the UK into the early hours of Saturday. But it isn't all bad news. The clouds, we understand, will clear in time to give us all a sunny weekend. You're with GB News across the UK on your TV, in your car, on your digital radio, and now on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Well, it was revealed today that Channel migrants turning up at RAF Wethersfield who have families already in the UK are being told that they can go and live with them. I want to know how many Channel migrants are actually living with their families in British communities right now. The head of the local parish council near the Wethersfield base told me earlier that people are being taken out of hotels, bussed to this detention centre and then asked if they have relatives here that they could stay with instead. What the heck are we playing at? Are we a serious country or are we Friends Reunited? I mean, why not put a giant banner up on the White Cliffs of Dover, or better still, airdrop a load of leaflets across Africa and the Middle East saying, got family in the UK, can't come legally, we'll sort you out, lads. I mean, as if the pull factor wasn't there already. We are basically telling people that the only way that they will see their families again is to get in a dinghy and come to Britain. But it does get worse. It always gets worse. Apparently, anybody claiming to be the victim of human trafficking or modern slavery cannot actually be housed in former military bases or on barges. Well, the ears of the legal community have just pricked up, haven't they? They will have to continue to be housed in hotels. Those are the rules. I mean, if it really is the case that anybody claiming to be a victim of human trafficking, modern slavery, trauma or torture cannot actually, due to Home Office guidance, be housed in military bases or barges and is being told that they can live with relatives around the UK, then what is the point anymore? Well, what's the point of all of this? The only chance we have of detaining and deporting anybody from Britain is if they come across the Channel, move in with their family, realise they can't stand their wife anymore and that they'd rather move back to the Gambia. But of course, I want to know your thoughts. Don't forget to let me know what you think. mailmog@gbnews.com. Before I go to my esteemed panel, I will be joined now to discuss this by military wife and former RAF Wethersfield base resident as well, Leslie. Leslie, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show. Now, I think an interesting element to this is that the Home Office forced through RAF Wethersfield at the expense of the taxpayer, at the expense of people in the local community, at the expense of people like you. And now it emerges that we basically might not be able to house anybody there, just unless there's the only Channel migrant that's never spoken to a lawyer and decides they want to be deported. I mean, how does it all make you feel?
I think it highlights the unsuitability of the site, and that's something that the Fields Association have been trying to show for a very long time. You know, Home Office haven't communicated, they haven't spoken with residents, they just haven't done anything to consult with any local residents. You know, kind of the contamination's a massive thing. You look at Scampton, they've actually stopped asylum seekers from coming onto Scampton purely because of asbestos. Yeah. We know Wethersfield has asbestos. We know there are major problems at Wethersfield, and yet they are still continuing to bring them onto site.
This is what I can't understand. So a few things, right? If they know that there's asbestos there, which presumably they do, and they know that their own guidelines actually say that if somebody claims to be the victim of human trafficking, modern slavery, trauma, basically what every single Channel migrant does claim, that they can't be housed there anyway, then why did they make you go through the rigmarole of going through all of this? Would you mind just telling a little bit about your story, the ways it's impacted your life?
I mean, I think it's been hard. You know, every family that was moved off the site, they've had their own problems with it. I think we were given a really good timescale. Everything was really well planned out, especially by the military. You know, we cannot fault the process they were taking. But Home Office wanted that date expedited, and, you know, they gave very short notice to a lot of families. And, you know, when you're moving children and everything else, it isn't fair. And they didn't take into consideration the impacts that would have on these families.
No, absolutely not. And also now for nothing as well, really, for absolutely nothing. You've just been massively inconvenienced for a plan that they must have known was never going to work and is not working as well, is the thing. And the idea now that people will be able to come to this country and be bussed to essentially where you used to live and then asked, have you got relatives that you can go and live with? To which most of them, I imagine, if they've got a brain cell, say yes. And then they go there. Meanwhile, it's your family, your military family, your tax-paying family, who has had to be inconvenienced.
Being a military family, that's part of it. We do move quite regular and, we can't argue with that lifestyle. We take that on and we do that as a family. On the flip side of it, everyone's going on about how much it's costing for hotels and things like that. If they can go and live with their relatives, isn't that cutting that cost? And I think that's a big thing to think about there. But, I mean, you've gone from the site. Last week, there was only 58 people on that site. And we were told by police today that there's between 100 and 200 on the site now. So they are moving more people on. I mean, Home Office aren't communicating this. It's our local police that are telling us this.
Yeah, indeed. But I think the problem with that is, other reports today say, they moved a load of people on, then they took a load of other people off because they were claiming that they are victims of whatever, and apparently they can only do by being housed in hotels. Leslie, look, thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show. I'm sorry we've not got longer, but I do hope to talk to you soon. And good luck as well with everything going forward. We're very much on your side here. I'm going to get the views of my panel now. Former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the former Labour MP as well, Simon Danchuk. Proper panel tonight, chaps. Proper panel. Kelvin, I'll start with you. I can see a whole host of problems with allowing channel migrants to live with relatives in the communities. I think we need to know how many people are there.
Well, honestly, that you could actually take your introduction. If I were a smuggler, I would be playing that out to the thousands of people hanging around in Belgium and northern France right now and say, do you know what? If you could just invent Uncle Arab, you'll be fine. OK, so but here's the other issue. The other issue is that thing you were talking about, either torture or any form of human problem, right? Human rights problem. They are 9 times more likely to have it if you are a channel migrant than happens in their community that they came from. The truth about the matter is they know what to say. And I see that the lawyers tonight, the sort of Bar Council, have been saying it's disgraceful that people potentially like you and certainly like me describe them as lefty lawyers. They sit there watching GB News every night saying, that's a good idea. I didn't know that. And on the question of the families, who knows whether they are family or not?
Well, this is the thing.
Who doesn't? No, seriously, because they throw their passports away, they throw their mobile phones away.
Yeah.
Any form of identity is lost. So if they turn around and say, I live in, say, Leicestershire, which wouldn't be unusual,
and
right?
let's be honest, the way that everything else has been organised thus far, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it, that we are just essentially releasing people? Simon, I'll bring you in on this now. I can see you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I don't agree with either of you, in actual fact. The truth of the matter is, this is the Home Office doing their job well for a change. I'm all in favour of stopping the boats. I support the Rwandan returns policy. But in this instance, if you drill down into the story, the people that are being taken out of these sites are Eritreans. It's a war-torn country. They are clearly vulnerable people. And just occasionally in this issue, we have to show some compassion.
Well, what's wrong? Why do they have to stay in a 4-star hotel?
Well, they don't have to stay in a 4-star hotel. They could stay in a 2-star hotel. And we can make it emotional, as you are doing, but the reality is we can't just keep going around being grumpy about this issue. We have to occasionally show some compassion. And in this instance, this is where we need to show some compassion.
I don't want to be unkind. This country has shown 170,000 pieces of compassion, which are the people who are currently on our payroll in our country. I'm not in favour of this at all. And actually, you're not in favour of it because you said you like the Rwanda policy. The reality for us all, isn't it, that we cannot carry on like this. You're in favour of Rwanda. Actually, your party is not in favour of Rwanda, is it?
Well, I'm not in the party anymore, but yeah.
Oh, right. OK. Well, whichever party you're in.
But do you think that the Labour Party should be in favour of Rwanda?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Why?
They should. Well, I have a house in Rwanda, so I know the country very well. Yeah, I've just married a Rwandan woman.
Can I just ask genuinely on this?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't this part of the the issue, which is that anyone who's actually really been to Rwanda or knows the country well knows that it would be absolutely fine to send people.
So,
yeah, I was there 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, this is the
in
thing.
Kigali.
So
yeah.
why is there a big fuss about it?
Well, it verges on racism almost.
It does.
From the left in terms of how they describe Rwanda.
Yeah.
Now, some parts of Africa, I was in Sierra Leone on business. Now, it's pretty tough there, but Rwanda is not the same. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
And it's a really
Can I ask you
smart
about
country.
a point you made earlier? I mean, it's a fantastic thing to find this out, by the way. But can I ask you another point? You made the point, well, Eritrea is a war-torn country. Honestly, are you saying, or is anybody saying, that all the war-torn countries in the world, if you are in that country, that you are entitled, under the present organisation, to come to our nation? Our nation cannot cope with it. It can't even cope with the people that are within it. So it surely can't be that we invented a set of rules, or the world did, which no longer can apply to everyone.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. We have to take our share of people. There's no doubt about that. That, you know, as other European countries do. I'm completely in favour of stopping the boats, and I think we should process these people, and those that are not genuine. I agree, the majority are economic migrants. I used to have them present at my constituency in Rochdale, and they are economic migrants. But some we have to be compassionate about.
Last thing, Last thing quickly. Should they be allowed to live with relatives in this country whilst
That's
they're away?
a really interesting issue. And the lady picked up on it, the interview. She was saying it'd actually save us money.
Save money.
And there's an issue there.
Yeah, well, OK, well, look, we will return to this. Thank you very much, both of you. As, of course, Simon Dunchuk there and Calvin Mackenzie. Look, don't forget to let me know what you think as well. Mailmog at gbnews.com. Coming up, are your kids at a disadvantage simply for being British? Plus, can comedy survive cancel culture? Stick around, find out.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hey, I'm still not Jacob Rees-Mogg. I am Patrick Christie's, but this is State of the Nation. You've been getting in touch with your thoughts in your droves on the latest topic that we were talking about, of course, the migrant crisis. Callum says, I think migrants should be happy wherever they're housed. The UK has a serious homelessness problem. We're giving housing to these people. OK, fine. Jamie says the government won't give us a number for the limit on immigration. Can they give us a maximum figure then? I think taxpayers need to know. I mean, at this point, what's the point? You know, it'd be irrelevant anyway. Just throw a number at a dartboard and then times it by 1 million. But tomorrow, hundreds of thousands of students across England will be getting their A-level results, with many of them crossing their fingers in hope of heading off to university. I just want to say as well, if you are watching now, you got your results tomorrow, or you've got kids or grandkids, good luck. And whatever happens, you'll be fine. Seriously. I know it might not feel like it at the moment, but whatever happens, you will be fine. But it turns out that analysis of courses advertised by UCAS have shown that some of the top Russell Group universities are likely to be turning their backs on British teenagers as foreign students are being offered places on hundreds more undergraduate degrees in clearing at Russell Group uni. So this means, really, that those British teenagers who don't achieve their A-level grades for their first choice course, when the result comes out on Thursday, are likely to find themselves at a bit of a disadvantage trying to scoop up another course. Basically, are they being penalised for being British? Well, joining me now is the headmistress of LVS Ascot, is Christine Cunniff, and journalist Angela Epstein as well. Christine, what do you make of this? I'm just going to say a couple of stats here that I've got. So Durham, apparently, top university, 90 international clearing courses available, none on offer to UK students as it stands. Liverpool, 581 international clearing courses available, none on offer to UK students. I mean, are British students at a disadvantage?
This came as a bit of a surprise to me today, I must admit. Tonight is going to be, it's awful for, our students, thinking what they're going to have to go through tomorrow, especially with the drop in grades as well. So we really don't know what that's going to look like come tomorrow. And I was sort of in a little bit of disbelief and obviously did a bit of research, became on there. And actually the universities are promoting those who do have their exam results already can go through clearing and have been able to go through clearing prior, since July, I think,
Really?
yeah.
So that's those who've got their results already, to clarify, are either people who did a gap year, presumably.
More than likely.
Or foreign students.
Yeah, where their exam results came through. And obviously IB results have already come through as well.
Oh, God.
So they're at an advantage. But I mean, I'm not going to say hand on heart that exactly what's going on here, but it doesn't look fair.
It doesn't look fair?
No.
Well, go on, Angela, what are your views on this? I mean, I would be absolutely few. I mean, we have students here who have got parents who've paid their taxes all their lives, probably, done everything else. I mean, we should be offering the best British university education to them first, shouldn't we?
Well, of course, look, the key word here is fair. All my 4 kids have been through university. The youngest been through the whole A-level process, rather. My youngest, who's 19, did it last year. So, and we've done it all which way. We've done pandemic, we've done it when there was continuous assessment, we've done it when it was based on exams and it was just those 3-hour exams at the end. So I've seen it all which way. And it seems to me the whole thing is a dog and pony show. The universities obviously have to make money to sustain themselves. And where does the funding come from? Fees have been frozen. They're looking to the international students who inject far more cash into their business model. However, the key thing here is fair. It's not fair to expect your children to go through the system here and then not be able to compete on an equal playing field. I know it's a cliche when it comes to applying. That's the bit that's unfair. So either let all the exam results come out at the same time and then it's first out the trap, or it's a question of we only give the places to the top 20% that get certain grades for certain courses. It's too mushy, it's too all over the place. And the biggest thing I would say very quickly is the most simple thing. I don't understand why this hasn't been done. Take the A-levels in March, publish the results in May, apply in June. You don't go into a shop and say, I may have the money for this, but I want it anyway.
Well, no, I do think part of this, Christine, as well, is for a lot of people, I'm not saying this certainly would have happened at your school, I'm sure it didn't, but for a lot of students, they had the pandemic. That was a nightmare for a lot of people. Then they've had things like teacher strikes, and then they've had maybe just, frankly, not being at a particularly good school anyway. So they've had the full British education system welcome pack, and then right at the moment when it matters for them to get into university, they're told, look, I'm really sorry, but we've just accepted 500 people from Hong Kong.
Well, you know, I think the other thing is these children that are getting their results tomorrow didn't take their GCSEs either. You know, so back, 2 years ago.
About that.
But also, there's also international students here who are in our schools who will be waiting tomorrow for their results. Now, is that fair? When they could have just come in from their own, and bypass this whole loveliness that we have. Our British education is one of our biggest exports. It's the most renowned and coveted thing that we've got, and we need to protect that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is for me a very obvious sign that even at young adult level, very young adult level, 18 years old, we are essentially teaching kids. One thing we are teaching them with stuff like this is that if you are British, you might be at a disadvantage. I just think, why can't we put at least our own children first?
But isn't the British education system, it's wrong. We know that schools, we haven't got it right. The exam system's not right. University entrance is what it was when I was at university back in the 80s.
Okay.
It's the wrong thing.
The problem with grade deflation, if I say to my kids or whomever, I got 2 A's and a B in my A-levels. Now, that was about 900 years ago when, if you got a C, you could get into medical school at my stage with 2 B's and a C, which is unheard of now. Yeah. It's that, my son applied for medical school, it was 3 A stars, it was all over the place. So the fact is that the A-level itself has been devalued as a product. But it should have been a gold standard. But this idea that if you are, location matters more than your capability because of all the things you say. It is our great export, but let's also give everybody a fair chance of having
I'm just going to give, before you come back on that, I'm going to give some of the stats on grade inflation, which you mentioned there. So we've had 15.7% of students were awarded first-class honours. That is in 2010 to 2011. The proportion of students awarded the top grade has more than doubled now, to reaching 37.9%. That was in 2020 to 2021. I mean, that is massive.
You're going to see a big drop tomorrow. The independent school heads get the results today.
Is that right? I don't want to use the word conspiracy here, but
no.
I am. Is that a bit of a conspiracy? Because hang on a minute, that right now unis are saying, "Oh grief, we need the money." 80% of higher education institutions have reported annual deficits, which is staggering. And they go all of a sudden, let's drop the grades and get a load of foreign students.
No. They've got to bring it back to pre-pandemic. I mean, Gillian Keegan was actually, there was a letter in the Times. We've got to bring it back because the grade inflation was horrendous, and A-levels have devalued over the last couple of years. But from what I see, there's going to be 100,000 less A-star A grades tomorrow. 100,000, and it will bring things back into perspective.
The problem is that there are very smart kids. Yeah, OK, it's an easy cliche to say the independent schools, they do well. Yes, they may have more support from home. There's a whole holistic sort of social picture that goes with why people do well at school. It's not just the quality of the teacher, it's the investment of the parents. There are students who do really well and deserve those A's, and there'll be some students who maybe not. Another very simple thing, Patrick, you need to ring the PM after this because I'm giving you all the great ideas about how
you should be in government.
Revolutionise this, is have a psychometric test. When you apply for medical school, law school, certain courses, they're not just going on A-levels anymore. They have a psychometric test. That's nothing to do. That encourages general knowledge.
But there is one thing.
You need to read newspapers and you need to be informed.
My A-level results were appalling. I was in a state school from a very working class background. To anyone out there, if I can do what I've done and got where I've got, go for it.
I'm very glad you said that, and I'm sure I've got no doubt.
I'm from a working class background too, but I was a scholarship girl. That was the only.
Well, my A-levels
exactly. But this is the thing. Look, for all of this talk, very quickly, because I'm going to get shouted at in a minute. But for all of this talk now about how essentially you might be disadvantaged if you are British, essentially going to university. OK, it might not seem like it right now, but no matter what, if you just keep going, you will be fine. It is not the end of the world, your A-level results. It is not. But anyway, coming up. Father Said creator Graham Linehan, sold-out comedy show, has been cancelled because of his views on gender. Can comedy survive in the current climate? Plus, the government has announced that rail fares will rise again next year. Is it time that we demanded a pay freeze? I mean, how good's the service, for goodness sake?
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. After a relatively dry and fine day today, that will be continuing into Thursday as well, and even into the overnight period. A good chunk of Wales, central southern areas of England, even Northern Ireland, holding on to some late sunshine and clear intervals overnight might allow for some mist and fog patches to form. Across eastern areas of England up towards Scotland, we're going to hold on to the cloud a bit more, so turning a bit murky across some higher ground routes, but temperatures generally holding up around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius in our towns and cities. A bit of a cooler, fresher start in some rural areas. And generally on the grand scheme of things, a lot of that cloud will begin to burn its way off once again, and we'll start to see those sunny intervals developing, and it will feel warm once again. We will, though, start to see a much more of a breeze around tomorrow compared to today, so that's going to make it feel cooler, particularly along some eastern coastal areas. But further inland, through the Midlands, down towards central southern areas of England, generally rather warm. High pressure, though, is not going to last into the end of the week, because this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic is going to start to drift its way in as we head into Friday. So some heavy outbursts of rain, perhaps some thunderstorms pushing in first thing across Wales, England, into Northern Ireland as well. That will tend to peter its way out, so Scotland generally staying largely dry with some sunny intervals. But we've got further rain on the cards as we head towards the end of Friday, turning quite windy around some coastal areas as well. Into the weekend, though, a bit of a northwest-southeast split. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Before I tell you why comedy is dead, I'm going to delve into some of your thoughts. GBviews at gbnews.com. Barry says, we need to assess the whole way we fund our universities. Our reliance on international students is leaving the UK students disadvantaged. Yeah, absolutely. What they're doing in other countries. Not this, are they? Kevin says, we are second-class citizens in our own country. And I think it's very sad, Kevin, that it has come to that. But Father Ted creator Graham Linehan's sold-out comedy show in Edinburgh has been abandoned by their venue over his views on gender issues. He was intended to perform along with 3 other comedians as part of a show put together by our very own Andrew Doyle, a fan favourite here. But the London-based Comedy Unleashed has been axed after a tide of complaints. Doyle, who will be joining Dan Wootton very shortly to talk about the cancellation, said he was astonished by the decision and that the comedy industry is in a dire state. In medieval times, the comedians, the jesters, they were the only people in the kingdom who could openly mock any noble that they saw fit, even the king or queen. So long as it was done in a jesting manner, a jester could get away with poking fun without consequence. It played a crucial role in society to keep the self-righteous in check, to moderate extremes and to poke holes in absurdities. Never have we needed it, and never has it been under so much threat. I'm pleased to be joined now by comedian Sajila Kershi on this very issue. Thank you very much. It's worth noting that the views for which they tried to cancel Graham Linehan are things like, I don't want a fully grown man with fully functioning tackle to be getting changed next to my daughter at the swimming bat, and that actually is the majority of people.
I know. Who knew that was the crime? I'm sorry, you've caught me decorating, because this year I've decided that I'd rather watch paint dry than go to the Edinburgh Fringe when they're cancelling lots of shows. Because honestly, and it's just you just lose loads of money as well. So why would you do that? I kind of agree with Andrew. I think comedy is in a dire place, and a good bit what you said. The thing is, it's our job to mock the zeitgeist, and it is just the zeitgeist of what's happening right now. Who knew that these were controversial views? And the thing is, he's not said anything that most of my female friends will say in private, and because nobody wants to come out in public and say these things because they're scared. And maybe I am a little bit too, but yeah, that's why I didn't go to Edinburgh. But I think it's absolutely outrageous. I do think he needs to consider taking legal action, because he's quite right, and it could set a precedence with if he does take this to court. With legislation, because it is a protected characteristic in the belief.
It is.
No one's actually fought at that yet, yeah.
No, it is. And I think that it is setting a very, very concerning trend, really, that somebody could be cancelled for this as well. I think that is quite shocking. It is actually essentially illegal to do that, so we are probably going to see a legal challenge there. I actually think it's time, though, seriously. It shouldn't be down to people like you. It shouldn't be down to comedians who risk potentially losing everything if it plays badly against them. We now surely have to see someone relatively powerful, a political or cultural figure, especially in Scotland now, where this is based, Edinburgh Fringe, coming out and saying enough.
No, absolutely, I agree. And the thing is, it's happening at the Edinburgh Fringe. The Edinburgh Fringe, which was meant to be a space for us to fail, to mess up, to create, and like sometimes say things that are going to be challenging. It's lost its soul, Edinburgh. What are you doing? Come on, Scottish people. And I don't believe when the venue said, this doesn't align with our values. I want to know who are these our people? Have you discussed it with everyone? Because and to say that we are an inclusive venue when definitely you are not. There are comedians that want to do a show in your venue, and you've excluded. Effectively, what they've done is excluded Graham from that one little from Comedy Unleashed. And if you come for Andrew Doyle, I'm sorry, I'm coming after you. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Not our Andrew Doyle.
Sajila, look, thank you very, very much. Good luck with the decorating as well. Sajila Kershi, who is, of course, a fabulous comedian and a regular here on GB News. So the government has announced that rail fares will rise below the inflation rate next year. They are trying to spin this as a victory. They told us that this is something to celebrate. But if you take away that spin, all they are telling us is that rail prices will go up, just not above 9%. Yeah, fine, but that would be massive and completely unjustified. So it's not a victory. Any rise in rail fares will hit passengers hard. Do nothing to get people back onto trains. We're being told, aren't we, it's going to cost you to take your car off the driveway, all this net zero, all this ULEZ stuff. Well, why don't you make the trains affordable then? About 45% of fares on Britain's railways are regulated by the Westminster, Scottish and Welsh governments, including standard day returns, season tickets and most commuter fares. They cannot expect the public to transition to their net zero agenda when they provide no affordable alternatives to travellers. Is it time to freeze train fares? And just on this, OK, did you know stats, that we have the most expensive train fares per mile of any country in Europe? Of any country in Europe. It is absolutely bonkers what's happening in this country. Joining me now is the travel journalist at The Independent, Simon Calder. Simon, very good. Absolutely, yes, that's a train station. Look, this is insane. Why can rail passengers having to pay more? 3,277 quid for a season ticket from Leeds to Manchester. It's insane.
Well, yeah, it won't be quite that, Patrick, and so nice to see you. I'm talking to you from London Waterloo, the busiest railway station in Britain. Of course, it won't be very busy on the 22nd of August or the 26th of August or the 2nd of September, because there will be more strikes on, which is part of the problem. But ultimately, yes, if you want to go from here to beautiful Bournemouth, and frankly, who wouldn't? Well, when fares go up, which they will do in March, all we know is that it won't cost you an extra £6. It might only cost you an extra £5. But the feeling is that these train tickets are just way too expensive. And who exactly, as you say, is going to come back to the railways to make up for the fact that all the commuters from here who normally go to Winchester and Woking every night, well, they're only doing 2-day weeks in London. How are we going to do it? And you're going to do it by improving the appeal of the railways, which is partly by not having strikes every couple of weeks, and partly by making fares at least explainable and a bit more affordable. But at the moment, we have this ridiculous situation where, as you say, some of our fares are the most expensive in Europe. We also have hidden away some of the cheapest fares in Europe, but you have to have too much time on your hands, like I do, in order to find them.
Yes, exactly. I mean, can you explain to me where this money's going? So if we are paying extra for tickets, but we still have staff working on the railways going on strike because they're not getting paid enough, where is this money going?
OK, well, the trouble is that the railways in the UK and in many other parts of Europe the fares that people pay actually do not pay enough to support the railways. Now, there are some profitable lines. If, for example, you want to go from London to Edinburgh, maybe to see some comedy if it hasn't been banned, then you actually have quite a lot of competition and a very healthy bit of traffic. Now, of course, the government made it possible for people to fly more cheaply by cutting air passenger duty. But for much of the country, fares are very heavily subsidised. They're heavily subsidised by taxpayers, many of whom don't owe anywhere near a train. And the whole thing is you've got to make the system more efficient. One way you'll do that is by cutting costs, by making people work more efficiently. But that is at the heart of the strikes, which have now been dragging on for 14 months.
Look, Simon, thank you very, very much. I must say, for that splendid backdrop as well at Waterloo, Simon Calder there. I mean, it's going to be bad for everyone, isn't it, this? Because we are going to end up with fewer people on the railways, and then we're going to see drivers penalised more for driving, then they can't afford to get on a train. Wages aren't going to go up on the trains because fewer people are using the service. It is an absolute hot mess. By the way, just quickly, the cheapest fares that we could find anywhere in Europe, in case you're wondering, Armenia. Yes, it's actually free. Apparently, trains are free in Armenia. I suppose the downside to that is that you have to travel within Armenia forever. But welcome back, though. Yes, Patrick Christie's here. I will be with you for the remainder of this hour on State of the Nation. I've got a heck of a lot to get through, so don't you go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, Patrick Christie's here. This is State of the Nation. Couple of quick emails. Ben says, to be fair, there needs to be a limit on what people can joke about, but this is crazy. Well, does there? You know, I mean, especially at a comedy gig. If you're paying to go to a comedy gig, just don't pay to go to the one that you know is going to offend you. That would be my view. Jen says, the trains are insane. I went on holiday last year and was shocked by how cheap they were. If we can't afford trains and ULEZ means we can't afford to drive, what's left? Misery. Misery's what's left, Jen. OK. Finally, England has reached the Women's World Cup final for the first time with a 3-1 win over Australia in Sydney. We're already the European champions. We will now hammer the out of Spain on Sunday and go for the gold. So, did any of you catch the game? Will you be watching on Sunday? Do you care? Joining me on this panel now is the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and former Labour MP, Simon Danchuk. Kelvin, do you care?
I do care, actually, and I didn't think I would. Being a Premier League season ticket holder and liking my football forever, right? You don't get looking like this without training. Brentford currently, was Charlton, and before that Millwall. So before you all start chanting, no, I don't go to my grave supporting one club. OK, I'm just telling you that. OK. So I was a bit sniffy about English women's football. Completely different. You have to look at these things through a different prism, right? It's a bit like going to National League and going to the Premier League. There is a gap, but it doesn't make it less exciting. Some of the technical skills were utterly fantastic. And actually, they're quite strong. I mean, you know, powerful, wallop, and all the rest of it. The centre half, my God, you wouldn't want to go bash into her during the game. A brilliant a brilliant exposition of sport, and they should be very proud. And we are going to see probably the biggest single explosion in the sport of all time. Nothing is going to stop football now capturing an entire generation of young girls. It's going to be fantastic. These women have been fabulous ambassadors as well. And
they have. Because, this is the thing. I mean, I can remember, especially when I was young, we had that golden generation. They're all falling out of nightclubs left, right and centre. They're all cheating on their wives. They're all getting up to goodness knows what. I mean, we've now created a generation of just really talented women who win stuff. It's quite pleasant, actually.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But I've got to ask you...
Well, it's the first time I've ever agreed with Kelvin McKenzie about anything, I actually think. I mean, Sunday's going to be big, isn't it? I'm not big on football, to be honest. I'm from Burnley originally, but which are not a bad team, actually.
No, good team.
But it's great that we're winning this. Sunday will be massive, and I will watch it. Yeah, because it's a big entertainment. I'll be in the pub.
Absolutely.
There will be a massive audience because there is, in these difficult times, inflation, migration, all the rest of it. This is a feel-good factor.
It is
involving, really, really great, talented people.
I think potentially with the England manager, we could see the first female manager in the Premier League. You look at her CV. It's unbelievable. Won the Euros with Holland, won the Euros with England. But on Sunday, she might have won the World Cup with England as well. I mean, flipping out. She took over from Phil Neville.
One question is, will it give Sunak a lift? Because some of these, if they win the final, it can give politics a lift. It could help Sunak a little bit, that.
Right. Well, you can be absolutely sure. If I were him, I would be on that plane, heading down there. And if you're watching, Rishi, do yourself a favour. Don't ignore the criticism. This is a great moment. And even if they get beaten, it doesn't matter. Go and do it. Do something political rather than just looking slightly grumpy.
You know what? That's a great point, actually, because sometimes politicians don't go to sporting events. In case their team loses,
and they're booed,
and they're booed, but in case they're associated with that loss. But you think, Simon, that you should go?
I think it could. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good idea. I think it could give them a lift.
On the question of her taking over the England team, I actually am not against this, right, at all. I would have been... If you'd had this discussion a month ago, I'd have said, have you gone mad? Right? I was the #1 dinosaur on this issue. Now, with Southgate, who can't win, right, no matter what he does, he just can't seem to win, right, why don't we just swap them over, see what happens for her? She gets paid 400 grand a year, he gets 5 or 6 million. I honestly...
Well, that's the point.
Could it be worse?
Now, I'm very vocal about the fact that I think, as a broad brush, saying that we should pay female sports women the same as their male counterparts usually is a load of rubbish, mainly because the sponsorship in sport, the money in sport, the draw of the sport, the quality of the sport, I would say. However, I didn't realise this, that for the England national team, women have been paid the same for their international appearances as the men for 3 years. OK, great. But the manager's not, and she's won the Euros. She might be about to win the World Cup. We've got Gareth Southgate on 6 times as much, I think.
And there's something about the psychology of it as well. If she's a winner, the psychology of that, it was like in business.
Right, so this must be the first positive conversation you've ever had in the GB News studio. You see what I mean? Everybody wants to join in on this.
But you know what? That, again, is a really, really good point. I don't claim to be massively into women's football. I think if a lot of people are being honest with themselves, maybe they're not massively into it either. But this is just a really lovable, objectively feel-good situation with so many positives to it. And very quickly, I'm going to ask... I know you're not massively into your football, so predicted score.
3-2 to England.
Go on, Kelvin.
2-1 to England. This is the Barbie of sport. It's going to be great.
Oh, there you go.
I am Kelv.
Exactly.
I'm here all week.
Fantastic. Look, both of you, thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been great stuff for Simon Janchuk and Kelvin McKenzie. Well, that's very nearly it from us. Up next... I've got written here, it's Professor Daniel Watson.
That's a Jacob thing. Look, do you know what? I am with you guys on the football. Can I slightly rain on the parade, though? I am absolutely furious with Slippery Starmer tonight coming out and saying, we've got to have a bank holiday if the Lionesses win. Do you know how much a bank holiday costs the economy? £1.3 billion minimum. Where are we getting that money from? So I'm all for the win, just not for the bank holiday. And I thought that was a ridiculous political stunt.
It's interesting. Yeah, the politicians, by the way, like Ed Davey, jumping up. We're just normal Neds down the pub here enjoying a pint.
That was the least normal watch of a football in a pub ever, wasn't it? But look, we are talking about Slippery Starmer tonight and why he has done a U-turn on his U-turn. And, of course, the latest on this despicable cancellation of Graham Linehan and Andrew Doyle, which you've covered brilliantly across the day, Patrick.
Dan, look, thank you very much. Make sure you stay tuned in. It's going to be absolutely fabulous, as it always is. All of that is coming up after your weather. I will be back tomorrow, filling in at 8 p.m. Yeah, I know. I'll see you then. Take care.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. After a relatively dry and fine day today, that will be continuing into Thursday as well, and even into the overnight period. A good chunk of Wales, central southern areas of England, even Northern Ireland, holding on to some late sunshine and clear intervals overnight might allow for some mist and fog patches to form. Across eastern areas of England up towards Scotland, we're going to hold on to the cloud a bit more, so turning a bit murky across some higher ground routes, but temperatures generally holding up around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius in our towns and cities. A bit of a cooler, fresher start in some rural areas. And generally on the grand scheme of things, a lot of that cloud will begin to burn its way off once again, and we'll start to see those sunny intervals developing, and it will feel warm once again. We will, though, start to see a much more of a breeze around tomorrow compared to today, so that's going to make it feel cooler, particularly along some eastern coastal areas. But further inland, through the Midlands, down towards central southern areas of England, generally rather warm. High pressure, though, is not going to last into the end of the week, because this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic is going to start to drift its way in as we head into Friday. So some heavy outbursts of rain, perhaps some thunderstorms pushing in first thing across Wales, England, into Northern Ireland as well. That will tend to peter its way out, so Scotland generally staying largely dry with some sunny intervals. But we've got further rain on the cards as we head towards the end of Friday, turning quite windy around some coastal areas as well. Into the weekend, though, a bit of a northwest-southeast split. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and